So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second lecture for 2025. Today, our speaker is Dr. Nimal Rathnayake. He's a banker by profession, but has done a lot of herpetological research from his childhood onwards, mainly with Dr. Anselm de Silva. He started his herpetological work in his childhood by joining the Youth Exploration Society of Sri Lanka, which is an acronym YES. And since then, he has worked with ARROS, that is the Amphibia and Reptile Research Organization of Sri Lanka. His research interests include tourism, marketing, management, and of course, herpetology. And he has written a few books and more than 25 papers in both international and local journals, in addition to many conference proceedings. So what is exciting, particularly exciting about today's talk is that we are not only going to learn about geckos, but we are going to learn about the brief history of gecko research, taxonomic work related to Sri Lankan geckos, and even the origin of the word gecko. So without any further ado, let me call upon Dr. Nimal Rathnayake to deliver his talk.
Thank you very much. Hi. Good evening, everyone. Joining with me today. It's a great honor to contact with you virtually at this forum, where our shared insights can make greater knowledge beyond boundaries. So my topic today, gecko research in Sri Lanka, past, present, and future. Let me thank Sri Lanka Natural History Society for inviting me to conduct this session. And I'm very sure you will be happy to see the particular illustrations in my cover page. Those are from Dr. P.P. Dharaniyagala. These are the geckos found by him, some of them, and found by some other researchers. So you can see these illustrations in his colored atlas of some vertebrates from Ceylon. That was in 1953. My name is Nimal D. Rathnayake, representing Amphibia and Reptile Research Organization of Sri Lanka. So let me kick off. Let me kick off the session with some rare, interesting two pictures. Look at the first one. A 150 million year old rock fossil of a close gecko relative. Actually, this is not a gecko. The reason it's not a member of any of the living families, but very much closer to a gecko. But the second one, the previous one is a rock fossil. And the second one, it's a amber fossil. It is a 54 million years old amber fossil from northwestern Russia. The reason for me to show these two images is that, right, those are very rare, very fascinating, and this is the history. So from there onwards, there are so many activities globally, and even today, many countries, many herpetologists, young and old, new and experts, right, they are conducting different type of work. So let me take to you the global overview. Currently, there are 2,300 species of living geckos, belongs to 7 families. Geckos are an old group, right? And accordingly, when you look at this particular evolutionary tree of the 7 living families of geckos, we all think all geckos have limbs. But look at the family Pygoporidae, we can see geckos without limbs. For example, Burton snake lizard, the first picture on the screen, widely distributed in Australia. And simultaneously, you can see geckos with limbs, right? The second picture also, I really like the second picture because of its camouflage pattern. So it's Madagascar leaf-tailed gecko. And when you look at these 7, let me take the pen, right? When you look at these 7 families here, in Sri Lankan context, we can see geckos only belongs to Geckonidae. So in Sri Lanka, we can't find any member connected with other 6 families. So if I go to the global map, a closer view, let me show you, right? So basically, this is the species richness, and this is Sri Lanka. In our country, we can see only the members belongs to Geckonidae. And the most interesting factor is that the richness is very, very high. So let me show you the Sri Lankan composition, and right. So look here, this is the Sri Lankan scenario, the herpetology of Sri Lanka. So if I go to the history of herpetology in Sri Lanka, initially, Linnaeus in 1758, 1758, found Sri Lanka pipe snake, that is Coelentropis maculatus. And that is the first described reptile from Sri Lankan context. That was in 1758. Concurrently, Schneider found frill-tailed gecko, the Hemidactylus falsteris, that was in 1792. From there onwards, Sri Lankan herpetological research has made more improvements. You all know that our colleague Anusha Attanabad and the group recently found a new snake, that is Dendrolepis thasani. That was in current year. With that, the number of snakes goes up to 112. With that, today, the composition of the total number of reptiles in Sri Lankan context, that is 247. 65 geckos, from the 65, only 64 described and one to be described, right? 22 dragon lizards, 1 chameleon, 32 skins, 2 snake eye lizards, 2 manta lizards, 2 crocodiles, and 9 testudians. So what is interesting? The Sri Lankan reptile diversity is very, very high when comparing with the other large tropical countries. 247 species within 65,610 square kilometers. Amazing. So you can see the other countries, the composition also, diversity, composition, everything is here. So because of the timing, right, I have to rush through. So let me go to the Sri Lankan scenario. So if you take the Sri Lankan Geckonidae, the whole 65 members belongs to family Geckonidae. The Calodactylus, Nemespis, Dactylus, Grahira, Hemidactylus, Hemiphilodactylus, and the Lepidodactylus. Those are the 7 families, 7 genera we can see in Sri Lankan context. Out of 65 species, you won't believe 55 endemic. The percentage 85%. See the beauty. And also, out of them, 37, that means 57% are threatened species. So that is the overview of Sri Lankan gecko fauna. So this is another interesting map I really want to show you. In 2019, Ministry of Mahal Development and Environment, they did the 6th National Report to Convention on Biological Diversity. There were so many maps, there were so many information. Accordingly, in that particular work, the particular map was there. they have identified 12 reptilian zones plus 12 areas of special interest and taxonomic uniqueness. But we were conducting several studies during the past, and with the information we found, with the data we gathered, we were able to modify that particular map. And we are very happy to introduce 12 reptilian zones and 12 areas of special interest and taxonomic uniqueness. So, a book on geckos of Sri Lanka about to come. So we will be publishing this particular map along with that particular publication. So the 12 areas are here: Ritigala, Hantana Gannorua, Monaragala, Pidukalagala, Western Singharaja, Eastern Singharaja, Sripada, Namankula, Hannelia, Dediagala, Nakia Denia complex, including Kottav and Ray, Rivastan, Gonamada, and Pitavalapatana complex, Dolukanda, and another one is there, right? So the uniqueness is there. So when you visit these specific areas, you can see different type of herbs. So that's the main reason for the Ministry of Mahal Development and Environment and for us to come out with such a wonderful work. So look here, as I promised. So let me explain, let me show you some rock cards, what you can see in Sri Lankan context. So basically, the first attempt to explore the rock cards in Sri Lankan context, the date goes back to 19th century. The first commission of the Archaeological Survey in Sri Lanka, ACP Bell, he's the person who started this work, the exploring rock paintings. However, Sri Lanka is a home for various Vedda rock cards that has been published in many articles. And thereafter, so what are the rock cards? What do you mean by Vedda rock card? Why it is important? How they did that? What's the reason for drawing such a beautiful illustrations on rock surfaces? There's one area that you really need to explore. Very interesting. So basically what we found, so in Tarulenagala rock cave in Ampar district, we found some wonderful illustrations. This is a large gecko. Let me take the pen, right? A large gecko, a crocodile, an elephant, and another small gecko. So basically, so I was raising some questions. And also, when Selectum and Selectum write in their text in 1911, they questioned some Vedda woman. What they said was, they mixed ash and saliva to draw these figures. And the diagrams made either by using their finger or a stick. The material, a mixed ash and saliva. Unbelievable, right? And also, when we visit Tarulenagala rock cave, so that is the only place we found during the past, during the history. The geckos we found only at that particular location. There are two images, the larger gecko and a small gecko. And Dr. Anslam recently did a research study. And what he assumed is that these rock arts are more than 200 to 300 years old. So that is what he found recently. That has been documented in one of our Liriocephalus journals. So what is interesting? So basically, when you look at that particular rock art, the large gecko, There are several arguments. Some archaeologists say it's not a gecko, it's a crocodile. For them to say crocodile, the reason, these parallel dot lines, right? You can see, right? Some parallel dot lines are here. And they assume that's water. It represents water. But being herpetologist, when you look at the illustration to the great extent, we need to agree it's a gecko, namely Sri Lankan golden rock gecko, scientifically Calodactylus elongavtrium. Right? It's a gecko identified by P.P. Dharaniyagala in 1953. So basically, when I say, right, it's a gecko and it is a Sri Lankan golden rock gecko. So what are they? So what's the argument? So that's the most important part, right? How we can argue to say it's a gecko. So we did a comparison. Look at this, right? So this particular diagram will also come through our book, right? It will be published very soon. I'll be letting you know later, right, at the end. So look at the body shape. So this is a live specimen. And it's large. Basically, this particular image or the illustration, the length is 84 centimeters, the total length. But if we take a adult gecko of this particular species, it's approximately 200 millimeters. It's large, comparatively large. That is number one, and we can see a larger body. That's number one. And secondly, look at this, the eggs. They are very much used to communal egg-laying behavior. So when you look at that particular rock face, what we can see, the new eggs plus all the eggshells, right? So that can be seen, and that's the behavior. And what we assume is that the parallel dot lines, those are eggs and not the water. That is one argument. The second one, look at the volumes, right? Look at the volumes. And when you compare with this particular live specimen, it's almost same. And also, one of the significant characteristics of this particular gecko, the Calodactylus elongavtrium, is the paired leaf-like lamella, right? So what they can see in their toes and the fingers. So that is somewhat significant. And also the most important part, the identical position of the tail. Look at the tail tip. The same here. The bend, look at this. Right, with those arguments, we can ensure that this is the Sri Lankan golden gecko, Calodactylus elongavtrium. And also for us to say this is not a crocodile, this is a gecko, we found so many number of geckos in this location, the particular species. And also from the old eggshells, we can assure they are residing in this particular location for a longer time period, right? Those are the evidence that we can present. So this is a wonderful area, right? It is very closer to Siambalandua in Amba district. So I know, so I had a chat with Inoka right before this session. So you frequently visit so many places, right, for expeditions. So I propose you to visit such place. You can have a wonderful time, right? And so much of fauna and flora you can observe, including this Tharulinagada rock cave. That's going to be one of the good session for you. So thereafter, I agree. I agreed with you to explain some historical information about the origin of the word gecko. So let me show you one thing first. Look at this article. Sorry. So this is an article, right, written by Dr. Anselm Silva and Nimal. So they were trying to identify the origin of the word gecko. And this is Dr. Anselm, one of the known parties of Sri Lanka. He's considered the father of the modern herpetology in Sri Lanka. And he's the guru for many of us for a longer time period. And this is Professor Aaron Bauer from America. So they are one of the key people who are working on gecko studies globally and Sri Lankan context. So for me to explain the origin of the word gecko, I'll be taking three early works. Number one, early Western work. Number two, early Sri Lankan work. And number three, early European work. So when you look at early Western work, let me say first what Oxford English Dictionary says. According to OED, that is Oxford English Dictionary, a gecko is a house lizard found in the warmer region of both yes, remarkable for its peculiar cry and for its power of climbing walls. That is what dictionary says. But how this particular word came, gecko? That is what we really want to find, because basically when you study a subject, studying of its history is extremely wide. With that, you can identify so much of things, and that's going to be extremely vital. Basically, the first name, right, for a gecko came through two historical work. One from Lockyer, that was in 1711, and the second one from Hamilton in 1727. Lockyer called gecko as Chaco, Chacco, and Hamilton, that was in 1727, Jacoa. Chaco and Chaco. That was the two names used by Lockyer and Hamilton. But still, it's not clear. But subsequently, the Goldsmith, that was in 1774, first time used the term gecko. Gecko. Look at the two terms. One is gecko, Gecko. The second one, again, Gekko. So that is what we are currently using, right? So this is what we are currently using. Gecko. Not the Gekk, that is more generic. So how it came, right? So look here, before Goldsmith in 1774 introduces the word or use the term gecko, Gecko, two scholars, namely Linnaeus, that was in 1758, and Laurenti in 1768, used the generic name gecko, Gekko. Again, I'm pointing out the difference between two words, Gecko and Gekko. Two entirely different. So what we are currently using is this, Gekko. So how it came, right? From where it came? It came from the Seba's illustrations. Seba in 1734 did a work. They have plate number 108 of their work. Or let me say book, right? The plate number 108. It contains turkey geckos. Scientifically, gecko. Scientifically, it's gecko. From there the name came, right? Thereafter, the Goldsmith came out with the term gecko. That was in 1774. That is 18th century. But if you look at the Sri Lankan early work, I think you're going to see this particular document for the first time in your life, I think. The Ruanmala and the Pumala. One of the very important documents, right, that you can see where in our country, the particular name created. So, right, the Saratha Sangrahaya, that's a traditional medical work in Sri Lanka, written in Sanskrit, and the author, the Persian king Buddhadasa, that's around 337 to 365 ACE, he named the gecko as Gruha Goda. Grhagodha, that's the name he given to the gecko. And in that particular book, what we can see, a prescription, medical prescription, a herbal prescription for gecko bite. So what's the meaning, right? The Sanskrit word Gruhagoda or Gruhagoda, right? What do you mean? Gruha means, right, in Sinhala, it's house. Right? Gruha means house. Goda, right? You can say, right? We can say Goya, right? Or lizard or gecko. That's how it came. And simultaneously to another traditional medical work, right? Prayoga Ratnavaliya and Vara Yogaswara, right? Two medical books that also recommend a number of herbal prescriptions. And again, in those books, they are using the same name, Gruha Goda. But interestingly, we have two early lexicons, right? That is Pumala and, let me take the laser point, right? Ruanmala and the Pumala. This is something extremely interesting. The Ruanmala that was written by 5th King Parankrabbahu, that was in 141412 and 1467 AC in between. He's the author. But Pumala actually, author is not traceable. Pumala is called Pumal Nigattua also, right? And also Ruanmala, that is Ruanmal Nigantua or Nam Ratanamalava, right? If you look at history, or if you got history, you can see these names, right? They have used in different ways. But in that particular book, right? In this particular book, this has been translated to Sinhala by Batuan Tudari. And there, what you can see here, right? Look here, I hope that you can see very clearly. Suhunanta, Samaatn, Gego, Suhunu, right? So that is the name that they have given. That was in 15th century, right? Gecko, the word gecko comes from this particular document. And also, so when we further analyze the particular word gecko, how it came. So ultimately what we found was, right, actually, Dr. Anselm and Professor Aaron Bauer, what they found, right? The particular name came from the previous Gruha Goda, right? So that is the Gruha means gay, right? It's a house. In single house means gay. Gedara gay kiyane. And it's dueling, right? And Goda means Goya. And again, from there, if you take the particular two words go, gecko is there. So this is apparently the oldest Iluo singular name for geckos, dating back more than 1,000 years, right? Not right. It's the history is back, right? Very important. So this is what we can explain from the Sri Lankan context. Thereafter, so I was taking the three early work, right? Number one, the early Western work. Number two, early Sri Lankan work. Number three, early European work. The Robert Knox. He was a prisoner in Sri Lanka and also Englishman. He wrote a book, An Historical Relation of the Island Ceylon in the East Indies. So you can see the cover of the book here. But in his book, there are a number of chapters and the pages for snakes, skins, monitors, and the crocodiles. And the particular book is considered the first account of reptiles of Sri Lanka published in English language. The first account in Sri Lanka, accounts of reptiles of Sri Lanka. So there's a huge value from the herpetological perspective. But unfortunately, we can't see any single English vernacular names for geckos. We can't see what is said in his book. So that is what he recorded. There is a little creature, much like lizard, which then look upon altogether as a puppet. Whatsoever work or business they are going about, if he cries, they will cease for a space, remarking that he tells them there is a bad planet rule at that instance. So that is what he wrote. It's all about a gecko. Thereafter, many scholars, namely the Kellart, the Tennant, and the Ferguson, they started using the word gecko. So that's all about what I'm having right about the origin of the word gecko. So let me go to the history of gecko studies in Sri Lankan context. So I really want to discuss this particular area in three main areas, right? The past, the current, and what we need in future. So here you can see some famous names within herpetological research and collection from Ceylon and their early work. This is John Edward Gray, Richard Henry Bedomi, Albert Gunther. And interestingly, Gunther wrote a book, the name of the book, The Reptiles of British India. You can see the book cover here. Very detailed. Not only that, there are so many people contributed Sri Lankan herpetology in a massive way. The George Albert Bollinger, he wrote a book, The Fauna of British India, including Ceylon and Burma, Reptile and Brachyria, right? That's what Bollinger wrote in 1890. Then the Malcolm Arthur Smith, a well-known person in the history of herpetology. Again, he wrote another book, The Fauna of British India, including Ceylon and Burma. But these are not the same book, right? Two different books. The volume 2, Sauria, that came from Malcolm Arthur Smith. This is Edward Harrison Taylor. These are the great contributors to the history of Sri Lankan herpetology. But from now onwards, I'll be taking some individual phases, right? Because to explain why they are so important to the history of herpetology. This is Edward Frederick Kellart. We call him the father of formal natural history study in Sri Lanka. He wrote a book. So this is the cover. And unfortunately, still we were failed to find out a photograph like this of this particular person. It's not available, right, for reference. So this is a view of the bust in the library of the National Museum, Colombo, Sri Lanka. So this is the only available picture that we are having currently. The Kellart born in Ceylon in 1838, and he's a fully medically qualified person. He's a doctor, medical doctor. But even though he's a medical doctor, right, he has done so much of herpetological work. And what he did, right, what's his contribution? He is the author for 4 genus of group names. 4 genus group names. And he named 160 species of group names. See the contribution. So 160 species group names. That includes not only herbs, birds, mammals, and amphibians, and so on. So molluscs are there. And concurrently, among these 160, he named 12 species of reptiles. Out of 12, two geckos. Number one, Gymnodactylus candianus, that is Nemesis candiana, currently, the current name, and Hebidactylus percy. Those are two geckos that the Kellart name. So you can see the two photographs. This is candiana. This is a percy. The photographs are from one of my good friends, Suranjan Karnaratna. He's one of the key persons in Sri Lankan context today who are conducting so many gecko studies. His contribution is massive. So this is William Ferguson. So this is a wonderful herpetologist, born in Scotland. And he came to Sri Lanka at the age of 19 and he was a surveyor. His particular job has supported him to explore the environment and conduct his herpetological studies. He collected so many specimens, and the significant work of him during his career, that is a book written by him, namely Reptile, Fauna of Ceylon by William Ferguson. He wrote the book in 1877. It's a very small book, only 42 pages. It's a booklet. But in that booklet, what we can see, what we can observe, what we can identify, he lists 170 species of reptiles. For him, reptile, there are some amphibians also there. So you can see some amphibians and reptiles within that particular text. 170. So you all know that in Sri Lankan context, we were able to hold the 4th World Congress of Herpetology. That was a remarkable achievement as a country. So much of overseas people came to Sri Lanka and we were sharing our knowledge in between. And that is one of the turning points for current greater herpetological studies. The total credit should go to Dr. Anselm Silla. He's the main person behind. So this is one of the publications we shared among the participants. This was reprinted and shared among them. That was in 2001. We had the particular symposium, but the book originally wrote in 1877. With that book, the William Ferguson introduces, named another gecko, Gymnodactylus scalfensis. Currently, it is called Nemesis scalfensis. So you can see two photographs of the particular gecko here. So this is a Haley. But when you look at his history, he has not identified any of the geckos, right? There's nothing for the composition from his end. But he was the first director of the Colombo Museum. And he was there approximately a quarter of a century, from 1877 to 1901. So basically why Hale is important when discussing about the history of herpetology in Sri Lanka. He has produced several catalogs and lists of the holdings in the Colombo Museum. So that is extremely great. So when you look at this particular list, right, the first list of the collection of lizards in Colombo Museum by Haley in 1886. This is the first list of geckos. This is the first list of lizards in Colombo Museum. So in this particular page number 1, you can see all the geckos, the gecko specimens that were there during that time period. So basically, so we were trying to find out this particular document, but we were failed. Ultimately, we were able to receive a digital image of this particular document from the collection of the National University of Singapore. Thanks to the particular people who sent this particular important document to us for our future references. So we need to thank Professor Aaron Bauer. He's the one who take the initiative to trace the document from National University of Singapore Library. Thank you, Professor Aaron. So look here, the main man. He's the key person. Because of him, we are here, I think, right? Including Dr. Aslam, right? Many people today, right? They came after. He's the person who opens the door for all of us. Edward Pierce Darnegala, or PEP Darnegala, the common name, or simply we say PEPD. He's one of the greatest personalities in the herpetological world of herpetological scenario. His education is from St. Thomas College, Colombo, and entered Cambridge University in 1919. Studied zoology, graduated in BA and completed MA. And the last year, that is 1924, he entered to the Harvard College, USA. So look at his contribution, massive. So Darnegala wrote more than 300 articles. Not only in herpetology, in many subjects. For example, 54 pages on ethology and fisheries, 79 on herpetology, 15 on ornithology, 60 on mammalogy, and so on. So that is his contribution. And also, why he is important to the field of herpetology. What is his contribution? What he has done? Why we really want to explain, why we really want to remind him always. He named more than 50 either living or extinct reptile taxa from Sri Lanka, India, South Asia, and East Africa. His research were not only restricted to Sri Lankan context, but there are many countries. India, South Asia, and East Africa. So what are the species that he named in Sri Lanka? Calodactyl silangavati, currently Calodactyl silangavatium, right? Nemesis podihuna, Gymnodactyls jacuna, currently Cretodactyls jacuna, right? We call Cretodactyl jacuna to it, right? Hemidactylus maculatus hune, Hemidactylus tridus lanke, Hemidactylus brooki, Pavi maculatus. So those are some geckos introduced from Sri Lankan context. And also, along with Malcolm Smith, he erected a new genus, Livopelis, right? That was in 1934. So see the contribution made by P.P. Darnegala to the Sri Lankan context. So he opened the doors. After that, many young herpetologists at that time, they started working. So still, this is a name that we are reminding always. So much of gratitude towards him from our segment of people, right? So I have very few minutes, right? Maybe 15 minutes, right, to wind up my session. So let me tell you what is happening current, and I'll be ending this session with explaining what we really want in future. So these are some developments came through during past few years. The number one, let me explain a few developments, not all, because of the time frame. So one thing, so recently the Sri Lankan herpetologists were able to clean the list, because some non-native geckos were there in our gecko list. Some non-native geckos were there. One specimen, right, Demispis mysorensis, introduced by Ferguson in 1877, that was in our list. Another gecko, namely Gecko monarchis, right, identified by Kellard, that was also there. However, recently the list has been cleared, and accordingly, now we have a very clear list containing 64 species, one to be described. The second one, the particular gecko, that is Calodactylus elongavithium, initially P.P. Dharniyagala in 1953 introduced this gecko as Calodactylus elongavathi. Look here, the name. But the name, he named the gecko or the species to honor two people, namely Percy Elongavathi and Margaret Elongavath. But according to the Article 32.5 of the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, the name has to be changed. It has to be plural. Accordingly, what Professor Aaron Bauer and Dr. Indranil Das did in 2000, instead of I here, they replace with ORUM. Now it's Calodactylus elongavathi. So this is a species name that we are currently using. The second one, introduction of many gecko species to the Sri Lankan context during the last 18 years. So what I told you, right, after Dharniyagala's period, right, there were so many gecko species came into the list, but during the past 18 years, it has been accelerated. Believe me, 38 new geckos introduced during the past 18 years. 38. And many more to come. And I know, right, our colleagues, there are so many new, they have collected so many new specimens and about to describe. One of the reasons may be, right, for example, we have number of specimens to be described, but we are waiting until our book published. Right? So this is a key person I told you, right? Suranjan Karunaratne. Right? Today morning I had a chat with him. He's one of my good friends. So what he said was, currently he has contributed to introduce more than 20 gecko species in Sri Lankan context. More than 20. Unbelievable. The total number of geckos, 65. Out of 65, 20. The massive amount. And not only him, Mendi Sikram Singha, Dr. Kalum Manamendarachi, and Tashan, and Dr. Anslam, Aaron Bauer. There are many people, right? It's a list. I'm very sorry I can't read the entire list here at this time. There are so many people, Kanish Kukwela. So they have done a massive job to strengthen the gecko list or the herpetofauna of Sri Lanka. And that is not the end. They are working towards a better list, and probably the diversity may be very, very high. So with one of my previous slides, you saw the diversity. 247 species within 65,610 square kilometers. Right? The figure may be increased. So see the future Sri Lanka as a biodiversity hotspot. It may be amazing. Right? We are so lucky to be in a country like this. The diversity that we can accept. Number 3, Pseudomonas Nemespis clavicola, right? That's another one that I really want to tell you, right? The Nemespis clavicola and Nemespis upendri are very much same, taxonomically same. We know, right, when we really want to separate two species, we are using ND2 measurements, right? That has to be more than 3.7% and above, but the gap is only 1%. And also, when analyzing the localities, it was straight line, mainly below 35 kilometers, very close, even though the altitudes were different. But look here, how we synonymize this? It's the issue, right? What's the methodology that you applied? Basically, the Nemespace upenri is differentiated from Clavicola by presence of enlarged median series of subcadules. That's the lateral side of the tail. But unfortunately, the holotype means the first specimen, it has a regenerated tail, right? And accordingly, what Agrawal did, right, he said it's not scientifically clear. It's uninformative. Accordingly, with the findings of Dr. Kalum Manamendarachi, right? Now we are using the name Nemespace upendra only, right? That has been synonymized. The rediscovery of Nemespace tropicagaster again. Bollinger found this particular specimen in 1885. Thereafter, nobody found a specimen from the Sri Lankan context. But fortunately, Tasha Namarasinghe and his group found some live specimens from Pilikatwa Gampaha in year 2016. That's another wonderful finding for the and they ensure the particular species is currently exist. That's number 5. Number 6, let me tell you what has happened to the genus Hemidactylus. So Rathnayake in 1953 introduced another species called Hemidactylus brooki pavimaculatus. It was a subspecies according to him. But in 2010, what Professor Aaron Bauer and some other researchers did, they elevated this particular subspecies to a species level by naming Hemidactylus pavimaculatus only, right? They removed the brookie. They removed out the particular name brookie from here. Now it's a full species, restricted to South Asia only. In the same paper, Professor Aaron Bauer and the others, they elevated the Hemidactylus tridus lanke to it's a subspecies to Hemidactylus lanke. But Mirisa and the group in 2018, what they did, they synonymize Hemidactylus lanke with the Indian mainland species, namely Hemidactylus tridus, right, during their work. Currently, we are using Hemidactylus tridus. And also Hemidactylus versi, found by Kellart in 1853. But it has been synonymized by Smith with Hemidactylus depressus. But we are very lucky to see that, right? Butterwit and Dr. Pethiagoda, that was in 2012, they found 2 new populations of Hemidactylus versi. And with a neotype, they were redescribed. And currently, we have two species, right? Persian, both depressus, both are with us now. So see the improvements, right? What happened in the herpetological world. So this is Hemidactylus platyurus, identified by Kellart in 1855. But thereafter, no specimen recorded. No specimen recorded. But surprisingly, Dr. Anselm de Silva and a group, they found this particular species after 160 years. After 160 years. Can you believe me, right? Now, the particular species distributed in Colombo, Moratuwa, Kurunangala, Batiklo, and covering 3 bioclimatic zones. So you can see the specimen here, right? Very beautiful gecko, very nice specimen. And this is Hemidactylus cumule, one of the largest in Sri Lanka. So that has been identified by Tasa Namarasinghe and the group from Calcutta, Uva province. And they found 8 individuals, right, from a single location. Still, it's a single location now. But this Hemidactylus kimbula is very much similar to Hemidactylus hune. And this is also considered a valid, not a valid, right? Very interesting finding in the history of herpetology. Thereafter, the revision of genus Cretodactylus. So basically, if you look at the write-ups of Griezmer that was in 2020 and 2021, and include 2022, right? He has written more on this particular genus. There are approximately 310 species globally. From that 310, so that particular 310 species, he has he recognized 32 groups. One of the groups are Tridus group. There are 32 groups identified. One of them, the Tridus group. Basically the Tridus group comprises of 70 nominal species. What is interesting, those 70 endemic to Sri Lanka and India. Endemic to Sri Lanka and India. According to what they did, right, recently what they did, right, they identified 2 clades. They subdivided that 70 into 2 clades, Freenatus clade and the Tridus clade. The Freenatus clade, that's endemic to Sri Lanka. So you can see the specimens here, right? Cretodactylus Freenatus, Crensus, Edirivire, and Soba. Soba is a very recently found, right? And the second one, Tridus, they are largely ground dwelling. They're largely ground dwelling. And the range size about 50 to 80 millimeters SVL. The Freenatus is much bigger. They are around 100 to 125 millimeters SVL. SVL means snout to vent length. Right? They have segregated that into 2 main clades, Freenatus group and clade and the Tridus clade. That's another current improvement in particular studies. Then this is the final, right, current finding of mine, right, current finding that I really want to explain. So basically, Cretodactylus, Freenatus, and Ramboda, they were found in central hills of Sri Lanka initially. They synonymized, and currently we consider Ramboda and we consider only as Freenatus. The secondly, Cretodactylus cursus and subsilences, right? They were found from the Singraj World Heritage. Again synonymized, and currently we consider one species, single species as Phaeaces, right? That is the species, right, that we currently concentrate. So that's all about the current work and what we really want future. So basically, what we know currently, there are so many people working on herpetology. The scenario is very different, right? We can see not only the professional herpetologists, right? Not only people from universities. There are freelance herpetologists, right? There are individual people who are very much interested in herpetology, and they are gradually moving towards taxonomy. What we more require is the conservation. But we can see many people, they are moving towards taxonomy. So according to the recent information that we are having, about 20 new species to be described. The specimens are with them. According to the recent information, right, somewhere around 16 Nemesis species. Currently, we are having 42. And for Cretodactylus, that will come into the, that will come soon. So it's a very good, right news. With that, our diversity will go up. And even today, Sri Lanka is considered a biodiversity hotspot and the value may go up. So it's a very amazing news. But unfortunately, right, this is an area that we really want to focus in future. So we have 64 described and 1 undescribed species, right? The reason for me to say 1 undescribed, so we are writing a book now, right? Dr. Anselm Silla, myself, Suranjan Kanaratna, Professor Aaron Bauer, and John Roach. John is the president of Global Gecko Association UK. Professor Aaron Bauer, he's considered as the actually the authority for geckos, right? So we call authority actually. So any information goes through him. And Suranjan is the one who contributed massively these days for gecko introduction of new geckos, right? And Dr. Anselm, he's the father of modern herpetology in Sri Lanka. So we 5 get together and we are writing a book on geckos of Sri Lanka. Currently, most of the work completed. It's about 600 to 700 pages, maybe massive. So we really want to discuss most of the aspects connected with gecko. It's going to be the first monograph in Sri Lankan context, right? It contains distribution, history, biogeography, geckos and the people, medicine, right? Taxonomy, identification, everything is there. And currently we have utilized more than 220 photographs for that. It contains about 10 to 12 maps even, right? So with that, what we found, when we gather in data for this particular work, the molecule identifications that has been carried out only for 50% of the Sri Lankan geckos, the molecular studies. So it's a requirement in future to carry out molecular studies for the rest of the geckos available in Sri Lanka. It has become another requirement. Thirdly, we have another observation, that is geckos living in isolated mountains. We have observed vertical distribution rather than horizontal distribution. Why? Still no answer. Geckos living in isolated mountains have a vertical distribution rather than horizontal distribution. The reason unclear. It's a gray area even today. Finally, the climate change, it's a key area, right, that we are currently discussing. But the correlation between climate change and the extinct rate of geckos, that is not well studied today. That is not well studied. So it's an area that we really want to focus in near future. So I think the given time is over, right? So let me wrap up. And thank you very much for inviting, right? Let me thank Sri Lanka National History Society for inviting me to conduct the lecture. And also, thank you very much, sir, Dr. Anselm, for introducing me to the particular society. And thank you, Suranjan, for being with me, right, during the last 2 to 3 days by giving so much of information. And thank you, Professor Aaron Bauer and Dr. John Roach, for being with us, right, always, for our supporting our herpetology work, and my colleagues, right. Thank you very much. And I hope that I have delivered something valuable to you all. And also, I believe, right, you have improved a kind of a knowledge, right, you have improved. Thank you very much. All the very best. Have a nice day. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Dr. Rathnayake, for that very fascinating talk on the geckos of Sri Lanka and the research on geckos of Sri Lanka. We'll now open the lecture to questions. Please unmute and ask your questions, or if you wish, you may type it in the chat box. May I start by asking a question? What did you mean by that geckos in the mountain areas have a vertical distribution rather than a horizontal distribution? Can you please explain?
Yeah, give 1 minute, please. So basically, when we conduct our gecko research, so the isolated mountains, right? There are some areas that we really want to focus. So basically, in isolated mountains, we can see some different gecko species, and accordingly, what we found was their distribution, that is their habitats, right? That is mostly vertical. Right? Not horizontal. So actually, this is a problem for us also. So we really want to find out the reason. So that is why I have categorized that under future, right? Under research needs. So this has been significant. We have observed this particular pattern in number of studies. So accordingly, we really want to plan a study to understand the reason for it. Why this particular vertical distribution rather than horizontal? Or why can't we have a mix of, right? What's the reason for to have that kind of a pattern? So it's currently questionable.
Like how many feet vertical is the distribution?
Yeah. Once you complete the research, definitely we'll let you know. We can pause the result.
So, Dr. Rathnayake, does this mean that there are just narrow vertical columns? Because if it is not so, then it's horizontal also, no? So that means there are certain narrow vertical columns where the distribution is vertical.
Yeah,
And,
that can be, yeah. Yes.
And not repeated.
Yeah, maybe.
It will be horizontal also, no?
Yes, I agree. Maybe. That can be one of the reasons. Thank you.
Doctor, your thoughts on the British Museum? We have a number of collections at the British Museum in London, right?
Yeah. There are so many specimens in British Museum.
But our specimens in the British Museum?
Actually, I want to get the list, right? The list is currently not available with me right now. Let me share with you. I'll email you. I'll email you, sir. That can be emailed.
Yeah.
I will check the list now.
Yeah. Doctor, as Dr. Inoka said, it's a very fascinating, very interesting lecture. But just one thing, you're talking about the origins of the name Gecko. I noticed that there are certain places where there was the scientific name where this word Huna comes in. Now, as you know, in Sri Lanka, the singular name is Huna.
Yeah, Huna or Hune, right? There are so many names, right?
Is it because it's a singular name, or I was very...
Yeah, it's a singular name, right? Basically, the reason for us to concentrate on particular word gecko, right? So what we found in this particular document, right, in Ruwanmala or the Ruwanmala Nigantua, it's about gecko, right? So what we concern was the global scenario, basically, yeah. And also, right, the Mon Huna or Hune, right? You can see in the Apa Panchangalita, right? So it contains the impact of when a gecko falls on a person, what can be the impact, and those things are available in Apa Panchangalita also. But basically, actually, we don't have any much information about how that particular term came in, right? The Huna or Hune. But our main concern was to find out as a global context, right? To find out how the particular term gecko came out. So that was a main focus of this particular study conducted by Dr. Anselm de Silva and the Aranbawa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
How could you keep geckos out of the house? Because they tend to dirty all over.
So we are very much into conservation, right? How can we explain anything to destroy them? That's not ethical for us. I know, right? I know the problem that you're having. But as a herpetologist, if I come out with any unethical practice, right, regarding reviewing geckos from houses, even my wife has the problem, right? So he was always asking why you're working on geckos, right? They are making our place dirty. But that's, I think that's beyond our right expectations.
They do help by consuming mosquitoes, I believe.
Yeah, basically, I can remember, right? Basically, I can remember during the malaria period, there was a right. There was a right. The malathion was sprayed, right, during the malaria period. Ultimately, with particular malathion, right, what they found, the ultimate expectation was to remove the mosquitoes. Before spraying and after spraying, the two results, right? After spraying malathion, so that has been, Sir Dr. Aslam Silla was one of the team members, right? At that time, I can remember what he told once. So after spraying malathion, they were unable to see geckos also. So that can be one mechanism, because with the pesticides, if you concentrate on the pesticides, so it's a one of the one. It's very harmful to geckos. So basically, even if you really want, you can use it, right? But that is one of the real research finding. After spraying malathion long time back, not now, right? Long time back, they were unable to see geckos even. But the purpose of spraying malathion, that was to remove geckos. That finding is there, that has been included to a book also. Right, under threats, that's the chapter 7.
Another question.
Yes.
In the diagram drawn by the prehistoric people, there was an elephant and another animal and a gecko. So, I mean, I presume they would have been drawing creatures which were very significant to their existence and their
Yeah, that is
well-being.
you are referring to that particular diagram, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is to that's for the comparison of the size.
Sorry.
That's to compare size, I think. That is what we assume, but actually we don't have very true data to compare the size, I think, right? So basically, if you take this particular document, this particular diagram, the large gecko, so the exact length, it's 84 centimeters. But physically, what we can see, that the physical length of a Elangvathium, it's somewhere around 200 millimeters, right? So we have to take the particular length also, and this is the elephant and the crocodile, and you can see what you can see here. The elephant is smaller than the crocodile, right? So maybe the reason for them to draw these diagrams in the particular cave, that is Tarulenagala, just to compare the species sizes. That's what I feel. But that has not been documented anywhere. But what we feel, right, when you look at these diagrams, and also, if I memory is correct, that Dr. Raj Somadev also once explained that.
No, my point is like the Veddas would have been surrounded by so many creatures, like deer
correct.
and samba and monkeys and why draw a gecko?
Because that's the reason, right? What I explained. So this is one of the widely available geckos in the particular area. That's what I explained here. In the particular rock cave area and Ampara and Mondragala districts in Nilgala, right? It's the habitat for this particular gecko, Chaerodactylus elongavatia. Accordingly, maybe the one of the reasons for Veddas to draw this particular diagram in the rock cave may be the high diversity. Maybe, I think. I don't know. Right? But all assumptions, because those are all illustrations, right? So what we do currently by looking at those illustrations, we are coming into some conclusions, some predictions. So that is what we are doing. But our answer is very clear here. The reason for him to draw the particular Huna or the gecko here, just to highlight, maybe, I don't know, right? To highlight the high diversity, I think. Because it's a sympatric gecko with some other species, right? So basically, even today, if you visit that place, you can see a large population. not only the physical gecko, right? The eggs and the old eggshells. That is very significant in this particular rock cave. That is what
There's
you
a
can see.
question on.
Thank you so
question on
much.
the chat group. Does current nomenclature on geckos, is it based on morphological characters or is it based on DNA?
Basically DNA.
Doctor, any studies on deformities due to climate change?
Yeah, it's a real need, sir, right? Because basically there are some studies on climate change, but actually what I mentioned here, the real correlation between climate change and the impact towards geckos, that has not been very well documented. So that is one area that we really want to focus, because climate change, that is one of the areas that we currently discuss, right? Currently focus. So impact of climate change not only for the geckos, right, to other herbs. For example, we know, right, right, in earlier there's a one Copotes selanica, right? That is one of the lizards. So you must have seen, right, long time back in papers. That's a head news. The number of particular reptile died because of the climate change, but the real impact, it has not been identified. Right, so that is why not only the geckos, right? So many lizards actually, right? They were affected by the climate change. The Copotes selanica is one; it's not a gecko, right? It's a lizard, but that they also affected by climate change massively during the past. So this is an area that we really want to focus, right? Today morning I had a chat with Suranjan even, right? So even what he said was this is an area that we really want to focus, right, in very soon, because thereafter, so even we can mention some precautions, right? What as a to conservation actions towards preserving such animals. It has become a need today.
Your thoughts on crows and cats, especially crows in high density areas and cats.
Exactly, right? The cats are the main threat, right? Cats are the main threat, and not only the cats, right? If you take the threats for geckos, there are so many, right? Some snakes and also the spiders, right? Spiders, and it has become another thing. And also we can see, right, during the Nilgal expedition conducted by one university in UK, right? They found another lizard, right? Autocrypsis wickmani, that was consuming a gecko. So there are so many things, and specifically what you are saying is very correct. Birds, including, right, many birds, it's going to be a threat, and also but the common threat is the domestic cats. So much of right, right. It's a very bigger impact, right? Recently, we did 3 studies, one in Nilgala and one in right Knuckles Range, and also some other area. Accordingly, in all 3 places, what we found, the domestic cats, it's going to be the biggest threat, in addition to some birds, some spiders, right, and so on. So we in this book we have a separate chapter containing 40 pages with lovely photographs about those interesting photographs. Thank you.
There's a question on the chat group. Does current nomenclature on geckos, is it based on morphological characters or on DNA?
I thought, well,
Basically, I think DNA, but that I really want to find out and come out with a proper answer. Right? I think it's DNA. Let me give it some time, right? I will check on that and let you know.
Doctor, I think it's nomenclature, right? Than DNA. I mean, you're the expert, I'm not an expert. Then DNA are the other way around, right, doctor?
All right. Okay, thank you.
So in the absence of any further questions,
One
let
question,
me
Doctor. What about
call
the book?
on
Are you
former
dealing with
President
folklore?
Mr. Chris Correa
Sorry.
to give the thank you address.
Yeah, madam, one more question from the audience. Yeah, can
Yeah,
I know the
Doctor,
question?
on folklore and so on, you will be touching the folklore section in your book? Anything like that? Some
Sorry.
folklore about geckos, the book?
Mr. Nimal,
What do you mean?
So like
Folklore,
Janakatha.
Janakatha, that's right, yes.
Huh?
Janakatha, yeah, about geckos.
Folklores. You are, yeah. There are many, right? I think we have categorized, we have identified about 12 to 15, I think, right? There are, yeah. There are folklores there. Yes, there are. It's a very comprehensive work. So we have been started the work 2 years back, actually, right?
Good.
So now it has come to an end.
So thank you, Dr. Rathnayake.
Thank you very much. Right, it's a great pleasure. Right, thank you very much for inviting for the lecture. Thank you.
Yeah, that was, let me propose a small vote of thanks on behalf of the participants at today's meeting. There are quite a number of people interested in this. Dr. Rathnayake told us that there are about 250 species of reptiles in the country, of which
247, yes.
247, I rounded it off for my memory purposes.
Yes.
247 species, and of which 64, I think, are geckos, and of which 85% are endemic. So that's a very high endemicity, and it makes us, it confirms our status as a biodiversity hotspot.
Yes.
So Dr. Rathnayake dwelt on also on many of the scientists who had contributed to herpetological research. Our own Anselm de Silva and Dr. Bauer, Kellart, Ferguson, Haley, and most importantly, as you pointed out, PEP Deraniyagala. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Rathnayake, and we look forward to, I think you suggested that we visit certain locations which might be having a lot of biodiversity in terms of geckos and also
Yeah,
reptiles.
if you really want, right, our team can support you
Wonderful.
to visit some real places that we can see most of geckos. So that what we can do. So please let us know.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I think we will be in touch with you offline and try to arrange some visits for our members and their guests to these locations and beef up our knowledge on this very interesting subject.
Definitely. My number and the email address is there, right? nimaldear@yahoo.com. And
Yeah,
my number
the number is
is 0773-13700, right? For anytime you can contact me, I'm there to support. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy to conduct this session with you all and hope to communicate with you in future. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, Dr. Rathnayake. Thank you.
All the very best.
Thank you, Dr. Rathnayake. And now we will bring the lecture to a close. And thank you everyone for joining. It was a great privilege to listen to this lecture, and I'm sure we all benefited. And thank you and good evening to all.
Thank you very much. Good night.